Grapes are mostly grown for wine and grape juice, mostly wine. The Chinese population shares the world's fondness for grapes. The most amazing part of grape growing and processing techniques in China is the way the juice is extracted from the grape without damaging the fruit. The juice is then processed into a concentrate that is used to make wine and other products. China has perfected this method and today produces some of the world's highest quality grape juice and wine. China has many means to process and harvest grape juice. When it comes to harvesting grapes, only the most cutting-edge agricultural technology will do. Though the process of harvesting and processing grape juice is very simple, yet it's also very efficient. What's more, to preserve the natural environment, China has banned the use of pesticides and other chemical substances. This makes it considerably more challenging to grow grapes and press them into wine or juice, but the ultimate result is well worth the effort. For as long as anyone can remember, the Chinese have been miles ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to harvesting grapes and turning them into grape juice or wine. In fact, one of China's most valuable fruit crops is grapes. They grow more grapes than any other nation. China's grape growers use a variety of techniques to consistently produce quality fruit. Also, they use time-honored techniques to extract grape juice for winemaking. The temperature and geography of China are ideal for grape farming, and this has led to a thriving grape industry. China has had a grape industry going back hundreds of years. Grape harvesting and processing have a very rich and storied history. Grapes were first introduced to China from Central Asia over 2,000 years ago. Quickly, they spread throughout the nation as a popular crop. The nation has a favorable environment for growing grapes, and the country's diverse soil types help the fruit to flourish. Some aspects of grape harvesting and processing are standard throughout the nation, while others are specific to different regions. Grapes in the Northern Hemisphere are typically harvested during the months of September and November. The harvest season in the Southern Hemisphere runs from around the middle of February until the start of March. They're then put through a crushing process before being turned into jam, juice, and the ultimate product, wine. The grapes are where everything starts when creating wine. The quality of the grapes is the most important factor in defining the final product's taste and aroma. The variety of grapes, growing conditions, soil minerals, soil acidity, harvest timing, and pruning technique all have a role in grape quality. More on that later, but first, how are grapes harvested? There are two main ways to pick grapes, mechanically and by hand. Harvesting grapes mechanically involves specially designed tractors that ride atop the branches and use rods to shake clusters loose. Machines can harvest a huge area quickly, but they often bring in unwanted byproducts like leaves and rotten grapes. Manual harvesting is done by hand. While it takes more time, effort, and manpower than mechanical harvesting, manual harvesting has several advantages. Picking grapes by hand allows the farmer to remove any immature fruit or damaged clusters. Manual picking can be a good first step to make sure that bad fruit doesn't get into the wine. Now we come to how these grapes are turned into fine wine. For white wine, the grapes are put in a press that squeezes out the juice but leaves the skins, seeds, and stems. Afterward, the grape juice is pumped into huge vats to settle. Every so often, the juice is racked or filtered into a settling tank to get rid of the remaining sediment. Most white wine grapes don't have their stems removed before pressing because the stems are taken off during pressing. For red wine, the grapes are put through a destemmer, which does exactly what it says. It separates the grapes from the stems. Grapes are also gently mashed to get their juices. Red wine grapes remain with the skins during the fermentation process, which is what gives the wine its color. For rosé, the process begins like red wine grapes. The grapes remain with the skins just long enough to achieve the color that the winemaker desires. Then, the grapes are pressed like white wine grapes, and the rest of the process proceeds as if it were a white wine. The next step in turning grapes into wine is fermentation. Wine passes through two types of fermentation, primary and malolactic, and understanding both is fundamental to understanding the winemaking process. During the primary fermentation, yeast is added to the grape juice. Even though yeast is naturally found in grapes, it isn't always enough to finish the fermentation process. The added cultured yeast feeds on the carbohydrates in the juice and multiplies, producing carbon dioxide and alcohol. Both the rate of fermentation and the final flavor of the wine are influenced by the temperature of the juice. For white wines, the temperature can range from 15 to 18 degrees, and for red wines, the temperature can range from 22 to 25 degrees. The red wine fermentation process requires extra attention since the grape skins might rise to the surface due to the carbon dioxide produced during the fermentation process. To keep the skins in contact with the grape juice, the winemaker has to punch down or pump over the cap. While white grapes are pressed before fermentation, red wine grapes are pressed after fermentation. Red wine grapes, like their white wine counterparts, undergo a racking process to rid the wine of any sediment. Then comes the next fermentation, the malolactic fermentation, which happens when malic acid is turned into lactic acid and carbon dioxide by lactic acid bacteria. Malolactic fermentation isn't done with every bottle of wine. The fermentation process does not add any alcohol to the wine, but it does improve its flavor. Malic acid has a very harsh, bitter taste, so wines that go through malolactic fermentation will be less sour and more smooth. Secondary fermentation is a lengthy process that may take anything from a few months to a few years. During this period, the wine is maintained under an airlock to avoid oxidation while the fermentation slowly progresses. Wines are aged in a variety of containers, each contributing to the final product in terms of flavor and aroma. Commonly, wine is aged in stainless steel or oak barrels. Winemakers have much more leeway in terms of aesthetic preference if they want to age their wine in oak barrels. Winemakers have the option of using either brand new or previously used oak barrels for the fermentation process. They can also choose between American or French oak barrels. Even more extreme, some vintners may employ roasted oak barrels, which have been charred in an open flame. As the wine matures in the barrels, it may absorb aromas and flavors from the wood. There's no rush to bottle wine. The winemaker waits until he or she is satisfied with the wine's taste. It usually only takes a few months for white wines to reach this point, while dry reds might take up to 2 years. Next up, to preserve the wine, sulfur dioxide is added to prevent bacteria from growing. Without the use of preservatives, even wine made in the cleanest environments can go bad due to bacteria. Wines have always been sealed with corks, but modern trends have seen an uptick in the use of non-cork sealing. The bottle is then sealed, and a capsule is placed on top before being heated to create a tight seal. The winemaking process is certainly something that's best left to the professionals to ensure that you get a high-quality product. Once that fine new bottle makes it into your hands, make sure you properly store it. As the world's largest producer of grapes, China's grape industry is of great importance. The industry provides grape juice and other products to meet the demands of the country's huge population. Additionally, the industry is a major economic driver and employer. The Chinese grape industry has made significant strides in recent years towards higher quality and greater safety. It has, for instance, built a quality control system and adopted more rigid safety regulations. These efforts have paid off as the industry has seen increased exports and higher prices for its products. Looking ahead, the grape industry in China is expected to continue to grow in importance. This growth will be driven by continued population growth and rising incomes, which will lead to more demand for grapes and grape products. The industry is also likely to benefit from continued government support. The modern-day grape harvesting and processing industry in China has come a long way, and by the looks of it, it has legs to run even further.